The story of Jenna Owens and Elliot Thorne did not begin with a glance of admiration across a crowded room, nor with a fated collision over spilled lattes. It began, instead, with a quiet, corrosive contempt that seeped into the very air of the daily grind every Tuesday and Friday morning at precisely 7:30 a.m. It was a contempt so ingrained, so much a part of the patron's constitution, that it required no overt hostility. It was simply the atmosphere he carried with him, like a personal weather system of chilled, arid superiority. Jenna had clocked him as a particular type from his first visit 3 months prior. He was a white man of perhaps 32 or 3, with the kind of sharp, patrician features that seemed designed for looking down upon things. His sandy hair was expensively cut, his clothes. Today, a cashmere sweater the color of fog over slate trousers, whispered of bespoke tailoring and a complete disregard for their cost. He moved with an unnerving stillness, as if the frantic energy of the morning cafe was a distasteful spectacle he was forced to endure. He ordered a large black cold brew, no room. When she handed it to him, his fingers carefully avoided touching hers. He took a small, testing sip, his ice blue eyes narrowing infinitesimally. He said nothing. He simply placed the cup back on the counter with a soft, definitive click, turned, and left it there, a full, silent indictment, as he walked out the door. "What the hell was that?" Marcus, her coworker, had hissed, nodding at the abandoned drink. "That," Jenna had replied, her voice carefully stripped of emotion as she poured the expensive cold brew down the sink, "is Elliot Thorne. I looked him up last week. He's the founder and CEO of Viridian Solutions. Sustainable tech. Worth a few $100 million, they say." "So, he's too rich to drink his coffee?" Marcus grumbled. "No," Jenna said, wiping the counter with more force than necessary. "He's too particular to drink my coffee." And so the pattern established itself. He became her Tuesday/Friday trial. His criticisms were never loud, never theatrical. They were delivered in a low, flat monotone that somehow carried farther than a shout. "This is unpleasantly acidic. The beans are likely over-roasted to mask inferior quality. The cup is only 3/4 full. Is there a shortage? The ambient noise in here is disruptive. Don't you have policies about music volume?" Each complaint was a small, precise incision, a paper cut to her professional dignity. The subtext was a constant, humming drone. This establishment, and by extension she, its representative, was fundamentally lacking. His gaze, when it landed on her, was not one of anger, but of a profound, weary disappointment, as if her very presence behind the counter was a personal failing of the universe's organization. Jenna, a woman forged in the fires of Chicago's Bronzeville under the unwavering gaze of her grandmother, Miss Shirley, met this not with fire, but with ice. She erected a facade of impeccable, impersonal courtesy so polished it was itself a form of aggression. She perfected his drink until it was a thing of chemical consistency, eliminating any objective flaw. She anticipated his needs before he could voice them, handing him a sleeve before he could comment on the cup's heat, having his payment ready before he could remark on the line's pace. It was a cold war waged with porcelain cups and credit card terminals. He was the entrenched, privileged power. She was the impenetrable, unyielding resistance. The first, almost imperceptible tremor in this stalemate occurred on a morning of such fierce, freezing rain that the windows of the daily grind wept constant tears. The cafe was a swamp of damp wool and sour moods. A young mother struggled through the door with a stroller, a toddler clinging to her leg, both soaked. As she tried to maneuver to the counter, her wallet slipped from her hands, coins and cards scattering across the wet tile floor. She let out a sound of pure despair. Jenna didn't think. She came out from behind the counter, past the line, and knelt on the floor. "Let me help you," she said, her voice cutting through the woman's flustered apologies. She began swiftly gathering the coins, stacking cards, her movements efficient and gentle. She then helped the woman lift the stroller over the doorstep lip, holding the door with her body. "You get dried off and order. We'll get you something warm. No rush." She guided them to a spot near the heater. From his place in line, Elliot Thorne observed this. He had been watching the scene with his usual detached impatience. But as Jenna knelt on the wet floor, her focus entirely on alleviating a stranger's distress, something in his expression shifted. The disdainful set of his mouth softened. Just for a second, it was replaced by a flicker of something akin to confusion, as if he was witnessing a mathematical equation that refused to balance. When he reached the counter, he was uncharacteristically silent. He paid, took his drink, and instead of leaving, he stood to the side, ostensibly checking his phone, but his gaze kept drifting back to Jenna as she now helped the mother settle her children, bringing over extra napkins and a small cookie for the toddler. He didn't speak to her that day, but the following Tuesday, his critique was absent. He took his coffee, and instead of his usual swift exit, he sat at a small table near the window. He didn't work on his laptop. He simply sat and he watched. He watched her interact with the other regulars, the elderly professor who needed his latte extra hot, the group of construction workers who joked with her, the shy college student she remembered always ordered a chai. He saw the genuine warmth in her smile for them, a warmth never directed at him. He saw how she was the steady, calming center of the morning's chaos, a conductor of caffeine and human connection. His observation was no longer that of a critic looking for flaws, but of a scientist confronted with an anomaly that challenged his entire hypothesis. The event that shattered his hypothesis utterly was the Great Machine Cataclysm. It was a Friday in late spring. The cafe was humming with its usual pre-work energy. Elliot was at his now customary table, sipping his uncharacteristically, silently accepted cold brew. Then came a sound like a dying metal dinosaur, a grinding shriek from the heart of the majestic, Italian-made espresso machine, followed by a puff of acrid smoke and the sickening fade of its digital display into blackness. A collective groan rose. Marcus looked like he might vomit.
The pump's seized. It's dead.
We're finished. For 3 full seconds, panic threatened to engulf Jenna. This was a disaster. Lost revenue, furious customers, managerial wrath. But then, she heard Miss Shirley's voice in her head, as clear as if she stood beside her, a woman who had faced eviction notices and doctor's bills with a spine of tempered steel. Baby, when the floor falls out, you don't look down. You build a new one right under your feet. Jenna closed her eyes, took a breath that filled her lungs with a scent of burnt wiring and dread, and opened them. She stepped slightly onto a low footstool behind the counter, gaining a few inches of height. Everyone, can I have your attention for a moment? Her voice, calm and carrying, cut through the buzzing anxiety. All eyes turned to her. We've had a complete mechanical failure on our primary espresso machine. Our deepest apologies. Here is what we can do. We can make exceptional pour-over coffee, French press, or cold brew. It will take a bit more time and patience from all of us. If you are in a dire hurry, please see me personally for full refund and our sincerest apologies. For those who can stay and embark on a slightly slower coffee adventure with us, your drink today is on the house. There was a moment of stunned silence, then a murmur that was more resigned than angry. She had taken control of the narrative. What followed was a 47-minute masterclass in crisis management. Jenna became a general. Marcus, you're on French press. Start 4 with the Guatemalan, 2 with the Ethiopian. Chloe, you are pour-over captain. I'll be your assistant, you call the shots, I'll handle the water and the grind. I'll also manage the line and orders. She grabbed a notepad, began taking names and complex requests, creating a triage system. She soothed a fuming investment banker by offering to call his assistant and have a car sent to a rival cafe. She turned the wait for a group of tourists into a mini tutorial on pour-over techniques, making them feel like privileged participants rather than inconvenienced customers. She cleaned a spilled mocha without missing a beat in her order calling. Her mind was a dynamic flowchart, her body its tireless executor. Sweat beaded at her temples, but her smile, while strained, never broke. And Elliot Thorne watched. He had closed his laptop. He did not leave. He sat, utterly motionless, his coffee forgotten. He watched the sheer cognitive horsepower on display, the rapid-fire decision-making, the empathetic leadership that motivated her frazzled colleagues. He saw the way she delegated with respect, the way she absorbed customer frustration without flinching, the way she transformed a potential business-killing disaster into a demonstration of resilience and grace. He was not seeing a barista anymore. He was witnessing a person of formidable intelligence, character, and command. The cognitive dissonance was visceral. The image he had constructed of her, a category, a service unit of limited capability, collapsed under the weight of her evident excellence. It was as if the ground beneath his own feet, the very foundation of assumptions upon which he had built his sense of place in the world, had turned to sand. His face, usually a mask of composed indifference, showed the struggle, confusion, dawning horror, and something else, a staggering, reluctant awe. When the last customer had been served, when the cafe was quiet but looked like a battlefield of filters and spilled grounds, Jenna finally sagged against the back counter, closing her eyes for a long moment. The adrenaline ebbed, leaving a deep, trembling fatigue. She became aware then of a presence. She opened her eyes. Elliot Thorne stood a few feet away, on the customer side of the counter. He looked ashen, as if he were the one who had just fought the battle. His usual composure was utterly gone. He looked unraveled.
"Jenna," he said.
Her name in his mouth sounded foreign and rough. She simply looked at him, too exhausted for her armor. He seemed to struggle for air, for words. "What you just did," he began, then stopped, shaking his head as if to clear it. I have sat in boardrooms with Fortune 500 CEOs who could not have managed that situation with a fraction of your competence or poise." The words were not a compliment. They were a stunned confession. He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a pained whisper. "For months, I have come in here. I have spoken to you with a contempt I did not earn. I have made assumptions about your intelligence, your worth, based on nothing but the color of your skin and the job you perform. I have treated you as a function, a flawed component in my morning." He swallowed hard, his atoms apple-bobbing. "I am a man who prides himself on seeing data, on understanding systems. And I have been blind to the most obvious data point in this room. Your capability, your strength, your inherent dignity. Watching you today, it has been the most humiliating and necessary education of my life." He fumbled in his inner coat pocket, pulled out his wallet, and extracted a crisp $100 bill. He placed it on the counter between them, a vivid green rectangle on the dark oak. His hand trembled slightly. "This is not a tip. It is a token of my profound shame, a material acknowledgement of my failure. Please donate it. Toss it. Use it as kindling. I needed to offer something tangible, however inadequate, alongside my apology." He turned to leave, his shoulders slumped not in arrogance, but in a defeat so complete it was almost elegant. "Wait." The word was out before Jenna could censor it. He froze, his back to her. "Why now?" she asked, her voice quieter than she intended. "Why this epiphany?" He turned slowly. The look in his eyes was devastating, a raw amalgam of guilt, self-loathing, and a desperate, bewildered yearning. "Because you forced me to see you," he said, the words raw. "And when I finally looked, I saw a person of such quality that it made the man I have been hateful to me. I was raised in a world of silent, unchallenged bigotry. It wasn't taught with slurs, but with sighs, with comments about those neighborhoods, with assumptions about who was CEO material and who was support staff. I absorbed it like air. I built my sense of self on the unexamined premise that my success, my background, made me better, superior." He laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You annihilated that premise in 47 minutes. Not with arguments, but with action. With undeniable excellence. I don't expect your forgiveness. I have no right to it. But I am undone. And I am inexplicably drawn to the source of my unmaking." The confession was so stark, so stripped of ego and calculation, that it disarmed her completely. This wasn't manipulation. This was a soul in the throes of a violent, necessary revolution. Jenna, who had spent a lifetime reading people for survival, saw the terrifying authenticity of it. A dangerous, profound curiosity stirred within her, cutting through the fatigue and the residual anger. A conversation, she stated, not asked. One conversation. Not here. Not on your turf or mine. Neutral ground. Relief, terror, and a flicker of hope warred on his face. Name it. They met that evening on a bench in the Lurie Garden, nestled within Millennium Park. It was public, serene, and bathed in the golden hour light. For nearly 3 hours he talked. He spoke of his gilded, emotionally barren childhood in Lake Forest, where diversity was a corporate initiative, not a lived reality. He described his father, Charles, a man who donated to the symphony, but whose jokes about urban planning were thinly veiled racism. He detailed his marriage to Cassandra, a merger of social registers, a union so cold they communicated more via their assistants than in person. I was the prince of a very small, very cold castle, he murmured, staring at the reflecting pool. And I mistook the castle's walls for the borders of the world. I thought everyone outside was either a servant or a threat. You were neither. You were just magnificently, unignorably yourself. And it terrified me, because it meant my entire map of the world was wrong. Then it was her turn. She spoke of Bronzeville, of its vibrant history and present-day struggles. She told him about Miss Shirley, who worked double shifts as a home health aide until her hands were permanently swollen, who taught her that dignity was non-negotiable and education was the master key. She described the 1,000 tiny cuts of racism, the security tail in department stores, the professors who called her articulate with surprise, the women who clutched their purses in elevators. And she told him of the dream that grew from watching her grandmother navigate a healthcare system that saw her as a chart, not a person, the Shirley Owens Community Health and Wellness Center, a place for preventative care, nutritional counseling, mental health resources, and, above all, a sanctuary of respect. He listened with a focus so intense it was almost unnerving. He asked questions, not to debate, but to understand. What are the biggest logistical hurdles for a project like that? How do you ensure it's truly community-led and not just another outsider initiative? He did not offer to write a check. He sought only to comprehend the scale and shape of her vision. The first time they shared a meal, it was at a beloved, no-nonsense soul food counter in Chatham. Elliot, in a simple Oxford shirt, looked like he'd been beamed in from another planet. He ordered the oxtails on Jenna's recommendation and ate every bite, asking genuine questions about the history of the dishes. The second date was him accompanying her to a contentious community zoning meeting. He sat in the back, a silent observer, as she spoke with passionate, data-backed eloquence against a predatory payday loan operation trying to move in. He saw her as a leader, an advocate of force. The woman from behind the counter was just one facet of a brilliant, complex whole. The backlash was immediate and brutal from both fronts. Marcus was livid. He's performing, Jenna. This is the redemption of Elliot Thorne, a white man's journey. You're the prop. He gets to feel enlightened while you do the emotional labor. Her Auntie Brenda was heartbroken. Baby, your grandmother would have taken her wooden spoon to that man. You are not a school for wayward white folks. Your love is not a diploma he gets for graduating from Racism 101. He sees your strength now and wants to attach himself to it like a parasite. Don't let him. In Elliot's world, the disapproval was a subtler, more lethal gas. At a Viridian investor retreat, his primary backer took him aside. Elliot, people are talking. This association. It's a distraction. It sends a confusing message about your focus. The girl is lovely, I'm sure, but surely you understand how this looks? The optics of a man in your position with a service worker. And a black one at that. It reeks of a midlife crisis, not stability. The word optics was used like a weapon. But Elliot's transformation had passed a point of no return. He began the arduous, private work of dismantling his own psyche. He devoured books, Baldwin, Coates, Layla Saad, not as academic exercises, but as brutal mirrors. He filled journals with horrified self-critiques. He sought out a therapist specializing in racial identity and unpacking white privilege, submitting to the uncomfortable process with the same rigor he once applied to business analytics. He started anonymously funding scholarships for Black students in STEM at Chicago City colleges. His help with the clinic was offered with a new, profound humility. He built her a financial model so comprehensive it mapped out 5 years of potential growth and pitfalls. He used his network to secure pro bono legal counsel for her 501c3 filing. But he was adamant. My name appears nowhere. This is the Shirley Owens Center. I am a volunteer consultant. You are the visionary. The moment I become a benefactor, this becomes my project, not the community's. When they finally found the perfect, sunlit storefront in Englewood, the loan from a traditional bank was mysteriously denied after a glowing initial review. The loan officer, an old fraternity brother of Elliot's father, was suddenly unavailable. Elliot didn't rage. He researched. He helped Jenna identify and craft a pitch for a community development financial institution, CDFI. For 2 weeks, they rehearsed. He grilled her with tough questions, forcing her to defend every assumption until her pitch was not just passionate, but ironclad. When she won the loan, the victory was entirely hers. He brought her flowers, sunflowers, because she'd once said they looked like happiness, and his pride in her was a radiant, uncomplicated thing. Their relationship was a continuous, often painful, dialogue. They fought fiercely and honestly. After a news cycle dominated by another police shooting of an unarmed Black teen, Elliot, grappling with his guilt, said, I feel so powerless. I want to fix this. Jenna's reply was a whip crack. You don't get to fix centuries of systemic violence, Elliot. You get to listen. You get to amplify. You get to use your privilege to create space, not solutions. Your guilt is not my burden to manage. He recoiled, wounded. But the next day, he returned with a list. Donations made to relevant organizations, a plan to institute a blind recruitment process at Viridian, and a simple, you're right. I was centering my feelings. Teach me how to do better. The final, ultimate test was delivered in his father's cavernous, book-lined study. Charles Thorne did not yell. His voice was like a chilled steel blade. This farce ends today, Elliot. You will cease all contact with that community activist. You will issue a statement to the board clarifying your focus is solely on Viridian. If you refuse, you'll be voted out as CEO. Your shares will be diluted into irrelevance. You will be written out of the family trust. The Thorne legacy does not accommodate this sort of sentimental contamination. Elliot looked at his father, then at the portrait of his grandfather, a man known for union busting and redlining. He thought of Jenna's laugh, the way she bit her lip when concentrating on a spreadsheet, the fierce love in her eyes when she spoke of Miss Shirley. He thought of the empty, gilded cage of his inheritance and the difficult, sunlit freedom of a life built on integrity and partnership. The Thorne legacy, Elliot said, his voice eerily calm, is a monument to exclusion, built on a foundation of other people's marginalization. I want no part of it. I choose a different legacy, one built with my own hands and my own heart. He turned and walked out of the study, out of the mansion, and out of his family's financial empire. The door clicked shut behind him with a sound of terrifying finality. He sold his minimalist Gold Coast penthouse, liquidated his non-Viridian assets, and rented a bright, book-filled apartment in Hyde Park. He used the capital to found a small, meticulously focused impact investment fund called Root Capital, dedicated solely to minority and women-owned businesses in the green tech sector. He was, on paper, a fraction as wealthy. In every way that mattered, he was immeasurably richer. The grand opening of the Shirley Owens Community Health and Wellness Center was a neighborhood block party that felt like a homecoming. The air smelled of grilled food and hope. Children played, local musicians performed, elders held court on donated lawn chairs. Jenna gave a speech that traced the dream from her grandmother's kitchen table to this solid brick-and-mortar reality. Then, her voice softening, she said, "And dreams are rarely built alone. Sometimes, the people who pick up a hammer beside you come from the unlikeliest of places. They come not as saviors, but as students. As partners who have learned that true strength lies in collaboration, in humility, and in the relentless pursuit of justice. Thank you for choosing to build. 18 months later, on a crystalline October afternoon, the center was buzzing with activity for a prenatal wellness class. Jenna asked Elliot to meet her in the small, thriving community garden they had planted together in the back lot. He thought it was about a plumbing issue. She stood before him, the late afternoon sun turning the falling leaves into coins of gold. "Elliot Thorne," she began, a smile touching her lips. "Our story has one of the worst meet-cuties in recorded history." He chuckled, a warm, easy sound that was worlds away from the cold man he'd been. "You saw me as a problem to be critiqued, a category to be dismissed. You were wrong, but in your wrongness, you did something remarkable. You allowed yourself to be proven wrong. You had the courage to dismantle the worldview you were given and assemble a new one, piece by painful piece, based on evidence, on empathy, on truth." She took a step closer, her eyes holding his. "I have watched this reconstruction. I have seen the sweat and the tears and the steadfast commitment. I have fallen in love not with a perfect man, but with a man who strives for righteousness every single day. With a man who chooses partnership over power, understanding over assumption, love over legacy." She reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out a simple, elegant band of brushed platinum. "My grandmother taught me that love is a verb. It's the daily choice to see, to honor, to build. I choose you, today, tomorrow, and for all the days after. Will you marry me?" For a moment, he was utterly still, as if the world had stopped turning. Then, a sob broke from him, and he sank to his knees on the soft earth, not in a grand gesture, but as if his legs could no longer hold him. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pressing his face against her, his shoulders shaking. "Yes," he wept, the word muffled against her. "Yes, Jenna Owens.
Yes.
It is the single greatest privilege of my existence. Yes." Their wedding was held in the very community center they had built, surrounded by the people who were their true family. Auntie Brenda, who gave Elliot a kiss on the cheek that made him blush. Marcus, who was grudgingly won over by Elliot's sincere, persistent efforts to befriend him, the center's staff and volunteers, and a smattering of Elliot's new colleagues from the ethical business world. His younger sister, Eliza, was his best person. His parents did not attend. A simple note arrived from his mother the week before. "We do not approve, but we acknowledge your choice." It was not forgiveness, but it was a cessation of hostilities. It was enough. Decades later, long after the Shirley Owens Center had become an institution, after they had raised 2 children in a house filled with books and laughter in South Shore, they would sit on their porch swing as the Chicago dusk settled. "I was a monumental ass," Elliot would say, the old shame still a faint shadow in his eyes. "Historically terrible," Jenna would agree, her head resting on his shoulder, their fingers intertwined. "But you evolved." She would lift their joined hands, press a kiss to his knuckles, weathered now with age and garden soil. "And I love the man you evolved into." It was a love story that could not be found in any fairy tale. It was forged not in a castle, but in a coffee shop, not with a kiss, but with a challenge. It was written in the difficult, glorious, unending work of confronting one's own darkness and choosing, every day, to step into the light. It was a testament that the most profound bonds can arise from the most fractured beginnings, and that a love built on the wreckage of prejudice, watered with tears of shame and nurtured by unwavering commitment, can grow into the strongest, most beautiful thing of all.